I'll speak first. Brandy said I could. I will try and remain as emotional as I
Take your
can.
time, take a deep breath.
Okay. My name is Allison Ekstrom. I became involved with the family, well, I consider to be my family, as well, and became involved with the sport of mixed martial arts probably 10, 12 years ago. I've been a fan, been an advocate. I've also practiced it myself. I am married to a firefighter, and also he's an EMT who has worked with Sensei Serrano. And so we have a little background there. I became friends with Dennis's twin brother, Derek, as he trained with my husband for his first amateur bout. And got to know him. He needed my husband needed a sparring partner for Derek. What better than his twin Dennis, who worked out in another gym, but was the same size, and they could spar together. That's how I met Dennis. After the tragedy, and I would like to speak a little bit on that, as I have my own knowledge and some things my husband couldn't be here today, has said over the past year and a half. After that, I met Brandy at the funeral, and she and I became instant friends, and we're very much alike, and we have a very deep bond, and we agree on so much, and I've been blessed to become a part of this family. As an advocate of the sport and a watcher and a participant, I would say that over the 10, 12 years I've been watching this, about 98% of the fights that I have and bouts that I have watched in person, on TV, may they be professional or amateur, tend to go the same way. They're very, in my opinion, somewhat cookie cutter when it comes to the safety of the fighter. The safety of the fighter is number one. You will see in professional events, amateur events, televised or not, the ringside doctors and what their role is. Like I said, pretty cookie cutter, what they need to do and how they need to protect the fighter. Same with the referee in the ring. He has the ability to call the fight if he is concerned over the fighter or the safety of the fighter, and many times will stop for 2 seconds. Got to take a look at a cut. Got to do this. Go on or call the fight. The corner, which is a staff, or it's usually the staff within the gym, doesn't have to be, is there again to protect the safety of the fighter, also coach them along and things of that nature, but watching out for their fighter. This was Dennis's first match, his first bout, amateur, and should have, in the eyes of every person I've talked to, every expert I've talked to on the subject, been paid much closer attention to than someone who's had 12, 15 matches under their belt. So that's what I mean by cookie cutter. They kind of all have the same role with the safety of the fighter in mind. That night, that evening, it is very disparaging to see the acts that took place that evening. Dennis was very in shape, didn't have any health issues, went into that venue to fight a bout against another participant, not fight for his life. And to see a ringside doctor, I don't know, and I apologize, the credentials you need to be a ringside doctor. He was there and was texting and speaking on his cell phone throughout the fight, on and off. Your eyes are off of the fighter. They are down. There is video coverage of this 10 minutes, the worst 10 minutes of video I've ever seen in my life. His head down. The referee, rather than they have a, am I correct, Sensei Serrano, 1 minute between bout?
Yes.
1 minute in between the bout where they can sit down and rest and talk to their coaches. Usually, 99% of the time, here's the referee going in, take a peek, look at the eyes, go to the next individual, take a peek, look in those eyes. Check them out, 2 fingers, 3, anything you can do, make sure that they're with you, they're still capable of continuing. We watched the video. The beginning, in my opinion, of a second round out of 3, he probably shouldn't have been fighting anymore. But did and continued on. Most say he probably won the first round. Into the second round, you saw disturbing neurological signs of a fighter in despair. And it continued. Never once did that ref do a check on him. Never once was the doctor called in when he can't walk straight. And his corner made an assumption that he was new, probably tired. Dennis was in the best shape of his life. So he stumbled over to his corner again, sat down. He was, in my opinion, I've never seen Sensei Serrano do this to a fighter ever. I don't think it's a practice that most coaches would use, but he was slapping Dennis. Plain as day in the video. I don't know if it was you still with me here? Okay, look at me. Maybe he wasn't paying attention. You know, he thought he wasn't paying attention, whatever the case is. Laid hands on him, pushed him to go out for a third round. The third round, Dennis could not walk straight. His gait was not correct. He couldn't hold up his hands. They let his opponent strike upon him for 3 minutes. And, I'm sorry, Adrian, is it 3 or 5? The 5-minute round.
Amateur, so it was 3
Is it
2-minute rounds.
Okay. 3, okay. So they let the opponent strike on him. The opponent, you could tell, held back because Dennis could not respond. He could not swing. He was falling into the ropes. This should have been a sign for anybody. My husband, who was a firefighter paramedic, I would have been up there instantly. There's something wrong. You need to be checked out. Why didn't the ref, his corner, throw in a towel for him, which you are able to do? Why did the doctor not just say, I need to take a look? Nothing was done. Absolutely nothing. Not one thing. The ref, in between the rounds, sat with his back against the ropes like he was on break. Usually, like I said, you check on the fighters. There was not one thing that was done correctly that evening. Not one. Then you were in a venue that's about 100 years old. Paramedic, they didn't follow procedures either. It was a very unfortunate. Comedy is not the right word, but when you say comedy events, when one thing happens after another, after another, after another, this is what happened that evening. That part will take you through the part where I think this sanction and regulation of kickboxing would help immensely. But the things that happened after, the mistakes made by the ambulance company, they were written up. I don't know if the fine stood, as they did not file with the state as they should have, that they were going to be sitting at an event and not able to be on call. They were also told they are EMTs, not paramedics. And they, in their contract, if they are not able to handle the patient, they need to call in the Milwaukee Fire for assistance. They did not do that. Instead, another Curtis Ambulance, which is the company that was on duty that night, came through. So they still didn't follow protocol. He was told to be taken to a life-saving trauma center. They took him to a hospital that is not a trauma center, not a life-saving hospital. And I was my husband did mention, yes, that is correct. You are to take them to a life-saving hospital, the closest one, when it's a head trauma like that. He was told where to go. They didn't take him there. The Milwaukee Fire Department finally got there. They waved them off, told them they could leave. Apparently, they have the right to do that as long as the ringside doctor would have rode in the back of the ambulance with Dennis. He got out, went back into the venue to remain roughing the fights, and in his opinion, make sure there was enough entertainment for the audience. That was his job, he claimed. So we have Dennis in the back of an ambulance on his way to a life-saving hospital that got detoured to another. He crashed in that ambulance that night. There was no one in the back with him. He was in the back by himself. No medical staff at all in the back of an ambulance. Got taken to Mount Sinai Hospital, where the care that was given, while may be adequate for certain medical conditions, was not adequate for a fighter with head trauma. And they knew this as the EMTs were walking in when Dennis fell off his chair, a stool that he was sitting on in the corner, and fell to the ground, crumpled to the ground. The ambulance company moved him, which you are not supposed to do. When you feel there may be a head or neck trauma, you bring out a board and you place them on that. None of that was done. But the problem with having this be sanctioned and regulated is there wasn't anything we could do. And I say we as I'm part of the family, but this is the struggle that Brandy has gone through and her family. And I never want to see another family go through this, ever, ever, ever. This was horrible. And that's all Brandy's ever wanted from the beginning. I don't want another family to suffer like this, because what happens is you can't correct, you can't make anything right because it was unsanctioned. It was not regulated. Their hands are tied. We can't help you. This was not a sanctioned event. This was not regulated. If it was, we could do this or this. They couldn't help us. And as hard as Brandy tried over and over and over again, that not being sanctioned and not being regulated held us up every time. And the importance of that, so that, as we said earlier, kickboxing can be in two forms, pancreation or kickboxing, pancreation being a form of. Pancreation does not allow blows to the head. Kickboxing can, and that's how this got amended. It is very much like every other mixed martial art, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, other types of things where judo, there are forms and submissions allowed that there are regulations for. This is so similar, and it's so hard to believe this. When the original bill went through, you can't predict the future, but Dennis was not protected. And I think any fighter deserves that protection. I can't imagine that there was a sport out there that is so similar to others that was overlooked. So that's where I believe from the very beginning when he stepped into the ring to the unfortunate moment when he passed, there was nothing we could do. Nothing Brandy could do as hard as she tried to have any charges brought forth. And I do believe a ringside doctor, a referee, a corner, 3 coaches, 2 coaches, whoever's in there for that fighter, if they knew they were going to be held accountable, if this was a sanctioned, regulated event, I believe there's a very likely possibility Dennis would be here with us today. If they knew they were accountable. But rather than sitting on your text phone because, it's an amateur fight, I'll look up every now and then, they weren't accountable. And because their lack of accountability, I lost a friend. My family, that I consider family, lost a twin, an uncle, a son, a brother, and one of my best friends lost a brother. And I don't want another family to ever have to go through that again. Thank you for listening.